Hello, I'm Ollie. This is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, all of the above, I'm going to do my weekly wrap-up video. But first, I'm going to finish my coffee. So it'd be fair to say it's been a bit of a mixed week reading-wise. I've read a couple of really excellent things and some middling things, and one thing that was pretty awful. If you've watched my January wrap-up, then apologies, there's a little bit of a crossover this week covering both at the end of January and the beginning of February. So when I did my video last week, I was reading Assassin of Gore by John Norman, so finished that. It was fine. It's starting to get, I've talked in the videos before about the dodgy politics in the Gore books. It's starting to get deeper into that rabbit hole, should we say. And there was less kind of fantasy adventure type action than there normally is in these books, and more kind of politics and culture, I suppose. But it was still quite entertaining. Then read Scorpion Second Generation, which was pretty terrible. So an 80s giant scorpion horror novel, which had really good gore scenes in it, but little else of any merit whatsoever. I've done a video on this and another British horror novel of a similar vintage, which will be going up at some time, so you can hear my full thoughts in that video. And then after that, read Allhallows Eve by Richard Laymon. So again, I have done a video on this, which will go up sometime in the next couple of weeks. So I enjoyed this a lot more than other Richard Laymon books I've read recently. It was still a bit of a mess at times, but it had a fantastically off-the-wall ending, and there was quite a lot of fun to be had along the way, shall we say, and it didn't suffer quite as much from the things I dislike about Laymon's books as some of his other things that I've read recently have. So yeah, that was pretty good. And then moving on, so this next one is a Kindle one, so I can't show you the physical copy, unfortunately. So Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, which was completely different from all the other books I mentioned and was absolutely fantastic. So nominated for the Booker Prize in 2021, and very, very rightly so. It was an excellent book. So it's about a female pilot in the 1940s who's attempting to circumnavigate the globe and goes missing. And then about kind of in modern America, a young actress who's making a film about this woman's life, and it was a genuinely excellent book. So Shipstead plays very nicely with those two timelines. They complement each other brilliantly. So the past timeline of the aviator was written in the third person. The actress's point of view is written in the first person. And what's fascinating about the book is that she doesn't, and I have read some reviews that criticise the book for this, but it's not constrained by those two characters. So particularly in the past timeline, the aviator's timeline, you get lots of stuff about like related characters. So there's a load of stuff about her parents and her conception and things like that. There's a lot of stuff, you get a whole chapter that's about not an irrelevant character, but a character who doesn't feel like like a major character, but it all ends up tying together beautifully. So yeah, I would thoroughly recommend that. It's not a short book, it's over 600 pages, but it gripped me completely all the way through, despite not being a kind of actiony type book of the sort I normally read. So yeah, it's got a great mystery at the heart of it, in terms of what happened to this female pilot. Did she die? Did she just go missing? And the tying together, as I say, of the different storylines, of all the different characters, of all the different there's lots of things that happen early on in the book, and they all come together beautifully at the end. So yeah, I would thoroughly recommend that. It was definitely a 5-star read for me. Yeah, it was great. So I read that for my for the book club I'm part of with some people or friends I've made through work, should we say, and it's exactly that kind of book. That's exactly the reason I'm in a book club, is to read that kind of book that I wouldn't normally read. And you know, often there's been a few books that we read for book club that I didn't enjoy at all, but many of them have been fantastic, and as I say, things I wouldn't normally read. So it encourages me to read more widely, which I definitely need at times, because otherwise I tend to stick to my comfort zones. Okay, up next then, so I just read this morning, Daredevil Born Again by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. So this was for a read-along that Steve Donohue's hosting, the Read Along Without Fear, I think they're calling it, and this was great. So I had this copy up in the attic. It dates from 1987, and I suspect I bought it in either 87 or 88. So I had read this before, but a long time ago, and I have to say it's in pretty good nick, considering it's well over 30 years old, this book. But yeah, fantastic. Really, really great superhero story. So Daredevil, you probably know about Daredevil, but if you don't, so he's a lawyer by day and a kind of vigilante superhero by night, but he's blind. So he was blinded as a young man, but has, by some radioactive waste, fell off a truck. But that the radioactiveness of it has given him superpowers. So he's got, you know, like enhanced, all his other senses are superpowered basically. Plus he's really tough and good at fighting. So this was so good. So this story is about his arch nemesis, the Kingpin, who's this gangster, basically trying to completely destroy Daredevil. So at the start of this, the Kingpin learns Daredevil's real identity and uses that information to completely take Matt Murdock, which is his alter ego, to take Matt Murdock's life apart. So, you know, frames him for not a crime, but for mispractice as a lawyer. You know, gets all the money taken out of his account, gets all his, you know, utilities shut off, and, you know, everything he can possibly do to screw with him, he does. And basically, Daredevil, or Matt Murdock, gets taken right down to rock bottom, and then manages to build himself back up again. So it's got some fantastic action in it, but just some really chilling bits as well. And what really struck me about it was, you know, we think of New York today as a, you know, a very metropolitan, you know, a great city to live in. But in the 70s and 80s, it was, you know, famed for being horrifically violent. And that really comes across in this book. There's just random acts of violence all the way through it. So, like, characters randomly get mugged and attacked for you know, reasons that have nothing to do with the plot. There's burglaries. You know, this book's got drug addiction, prostitution, you know, lots of really dark stuff for a comic book to have. And it gives the whole thing a really dark tone, which works brilliantly. There's also a load of kind of political stuff in there about American interference in the politics of other countries, and there's this kind of Rambo type character who gets brought in towards the end, who's, you know, basically under the pay of the CIA to go around South and Central America, you know, killing people that the American government doesn't like. So yeah, it's got definitely got a darker tone to it than many comic books of the era. And Miller, you know, definitely was one of the leading voices in the kind of rebirth of comic books in the 80s, which is when I was really into comics and when I read this originally. The fact that, you know, subsequently he's ended up espousing some political views which are questionable to say the least, I think doesn't take away from the fact that he's a fantastic writer. So I really, really enjoyed this and was very glad to read it again. Oh, and yeah, so the one thing I didn't like about this, and I think it's down to the nature of it being a comic book and part of a continuing series. So, you know, Daredevil has been going for ages. You know, this, I don't know how long it had been going. I can't remember when the character was created, but it had been going for at least a decade, I think, when this came out, and is still going today. So what that means is it's part of a, you know, a continuing storyline, and clearly superheroes have to have nemesis, and the Kingpin remains Matt Murdock's nemesis, Daredevil's nemesis. So what that means is, whilst Murdock and Daredevil go through appalling suffering in this book, as do people, you know, who he loves, at the end, he wins, as you would expect, but he doesn't destroy the Kingpin, because he can't destroy the Kingpin, because the Kingpin needs to continue as a villain. And that is, I think, the dilemma that comics faces. You have to always have that rivalry between the superhero and the supervillain, and what that means is, and meant in the case of this, that the ending is not as satisfying as it would have been if this was a standalone piece of fiction. You know, he would have destroyed the Kingpin at the end of it, which he doesn't. So yeah, that was the one thing that took away from it a bit for me. But you know, it's part of the art form, I guess. So you know, I don't know if it's a fair criticism or not, but I did find it less satisfying as a result. So anyway, in terms of what I've been reading now, I've just started reading The Gods of Mars by Edgar Burroughs, which I'm reading for the February Fantasy Stories read along, which is being hosted by the Bookish Branch, among many other YouTubers. I'll put a link to the Bookish Branch kind of launch video for it in this, if anyone wants to take part. But basically, I have spoken about it before on the channel, but it's throughout February reading shorter works of fantasy with a themed week each week. So the books have to be under 250 pages, and this week is classic science fiction. So that's science fiction published before 1971. Sorry, not science fiction, fantasy. And I'm counting The Gods of Mars, whilst you could call it science fiction, I'm counting it as kind of fantasy, science fantasy, because it's, you know, there's no basis in science for it. So yeah, I only just started that, only on the first chapter, but enjoying it very much so far. And in terms of channel stuff, hopefully you've seen I created my first original tag, so that went up yesterday, so the birth year book tag. So if you haven't watched that, take a look and see if you enjoy it. I quite enjoyed doing it, and quite a few other booktubers seem to like it as well, so hopefully some other people will be doing it soon. Pax Panic has done her version of it already, which was fantastic. Also had, what else have I had go up this week? I did a review of Bodies in Bedlam by Richard S. Prather, which is a 50s private eye novel, which I very much enjoyed, so the video for that has gone up. And I've also done a couple of library tour videos this week, and another tag video. So I did the 1001 books tag earlier in the week too. So I've had quite a lot of stuff go up this week. I think I'll put something up every day, and I've got quite a lot queued up for the next week as well. So I've got a couple more library tour videos that I'm doing. I'm now more than halfway through my 100 book challenge. So the Daredevil book was book 52. So I've done like a halfway point check-in on the 100 book challenge as well. So I think that's probably going to go up tomorrow. So as always, hope you found that a fun video. Hope you're all safe and well. Do let me know in the comments what you've been reading this week. Let me know if you've read any of the things that I've talked about, or if you're taking part in any of the read-alongs that I've mentioned. I would say as well, when I've finished Gods of Mars, I'm probably going to start Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn for the AJ Dunn Reads and Writes Killer Read book club. So I have read that before. I read it when it first came out. Very much looking forward to reading that again. And that's a great, you know, the AJ Dunn Reads and Writes book club is fantastic if you like thrillers. So we're reading a different one each month from the Penguin Top 100 Thrillers. So the first month was Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith, which is brilliant. This month it's Gone Girl, which, as I say, I've read before and I really liked. So yeah, looking forward to reading that again. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you're up to, and I'll speak to you again soon. Cheerio.